Hello, welcome to another episode of Faith and Geekery. My name is Mark, and tonight, we are talking all about Star Wars. And so I hope people like the little kind of link. This is our ninth episode, and I just thought I'd have a bit of a Star Wars nod there as well to episode 9. Discuss whether we like that or not. Tonight I am not on my own. I am with others that are going to join me. We've got Luke and Paul, who I'll bring up in a moment. But from the off, I want to ask the question of what have we been up to since we last met? Have there been any geeky things that we've been up to since we have last met? And that could range from very kind of normally geeky things through to more quaint and quirky, and does that count as geeky? Let's call it does. So I'm going to get Luke and Paul to join us. So hello Luke, hello Paul, and I'm just going to change the background because that's disgusting. Oh, there you go, that's better. How are you both doing?
Yeah, doing really well, thanks.
Jolly good. Do you mind asking whereabouts in the country you both are?
I'm down in Nottingham.
Cool. And Paul, where are you?
Definitely still in Leeds, so up north, definitely.
So you made it back from your train journey all right then, yeah?
Yep. Just about made it back across the Pennines safely.
Because for any viewers who didn't know you, he was wondering whether he was going to get back or not. Currently no viewers. Anyway, let's press on. So tonight we are going to be talking about Star Wars, but again, just like I've said, what have you been up to? Anything geeky since we last chat to each other? Paul, Luke?
Don't think anything particularly out of character geeky. Playing a few games. When we picked a topic, I ended up going back and seeing how many Star Wars games I had, which is quite a scary number on the PC.
When you say games, Paul, are you talking board games, video games?
Oh, definitely video games.
Very good.
And one or two on the N64 as well.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, fantastic. And what about you, Luke? What have you been up to?
I've been watching plenty of geeky things. Season finale of the Mandalorian feels particularly relevant, which I really enjoyed. And I've been doing some mini painting. So let me see if we're at my painting desk. So I've got my little dragon lion type thing.
Oh, wow.
I don't know quite how to describe it, but really been enjoying painting that in the scant seconds of free time that I have at the moment.
Fantastic.
Being the father of a baby.
Can you bring that up? Oh, can we do that again?
Yeah, of course.
Oh no, let's do that, and then let's do that. Oh wow, that's fantastic. At first I thought you say that again. A Draco.
Yeah, it's one of those strange fantasy names that doesn't mean a lot, but yeah. So I've been having a lot of fun painting this.
At first, when it was a little bit smaller, I actually thought it was kind of like Battle Cat from He-Man.
Oh,
yeah. And I was like, why is Skeletor on the top of Battle Cat? That's a bit weird. Anyway, niche 80s humour. I was trying to think what I've been up to since I've played a in-person D&D game, and I've actually DM'd for the first time for outside of family. So that's been pretty cool. I had to pretend that I knew what all these characters were all about, and had to have a bit of a bluff with it, really. And I only had to a couple of times kind of go, oh, actually, that was wrong. Actually, this is the actual thing, because there's just so much to take in. But that was fun.
Did you have to make up any names on the spot, Mark? That was always my least. I was terrible at it.
I didn't because we've been using the the Stormwreck of Dragon Isle or whatever it is, and so I just had the book in front of me. But I'm not alone with D&D. Tim has played some D&D and some background to Pathfinder project. Oh, absolutely. And somebody is commenting.
So I replied to a comment. I didn't actually realise it was going to identify me as you.
Well, that's what I was. That's why I was looking a little bit perplexed. I'm thinking, for some reason, I am commenting on my own stream, which I don't think I am. Jedi Survivor is on my Steam wish right now. Yeah, fantastic. And that is you, Paul. Then, yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. But yeah, no, that's good. Before I got distracted there. Yes. Cool, Tim. Yeah, I need to. I need to kind of slowly kind of walk into the waters of Pathfinder and kind of find how deep it goes, because I'm aware of its different system, different kind of approach to roleplay game, but I feel kind of reasonable at D&D now, so I'm kind of happy to kind of explore some of these other things and systems and all that kind of stuff. But that's good, and thank you Tim, and thank you Paul as well for talking about Jedi Survivor. I've not come across that one, but I think I'm a few years out of the computer games of Star Wars.
It's brand new.
Oh well, that'll be why then. So
That just reminded me though. I've got another geeky thing that will be starting over the next couple of weeks.
Oh yeah.
I will be joining a group that I've never met before playing Call of Cthulhu.
Oh, cool.
Depending on how you want to pronounce that, I guess.
Yeah.
So a little bit of 1920s.
Oh, and I've got to say, Tim is also kind of on topic with making a reference of walking into the deep waters, about Jin walking into. Is it Jin walking into the waters of Mandalore that deep? And I think at this point we've got to bring up the little potential spoilers. But yeah, no, I think it is safe to kind of launch into our. Into our main subject tonight, which is going to be about Star Wars, and a better writer. I'm also aware that my son is nearly off to sleep next door. He's only seen the first film, and so far he doesn't want to actually watch the second film. And I'm just like, mate, there's so many kind of juicy bits in that second film, and I mean by that is spoilers. And he's just like, no, I don't care. It's like, he's so going to find out.
One day.
But he's so going to find out through the means of the big spoilers. So let's also just have this on as well, shall we? Because I think I would hate to kind of pop someone's bubble with regard to Star Wars. So I think we're happy to talk about anything Star Warsy tonight, really, folks. For anybody watching otherwise, I guess I want to ask the first question, I think to you both as well. We seem to have lost our names. Interesting. We're still lost our names. Interesting. Never mind. When did we get into Star Wars? Was it from the off? Was it kind of... Is there an interesting story about how it got introduced to us, or not, or what?
I'm happy to go first. It's been something that I don't remember not being into Star Wars, if I'm quite honest with you. It was something that I was introduced to by my dad. I think when we delve back into our minds, one of the first films I went to see in the cinema was The Phantom Menace, Episode 1. And so, it was one of those really special things that we shared, and I loved, and just, would spend all of my time watching and rewatching the videos that we had, and talking about old Star Wars games, or, well, old for myself. I had a Star Wars The Phantom Menace game on PlayStation 1. And to the point I wore the disc out that I played it so much. I just loved it. Although I had to be a bit sneaky with the amount I played it, because my mum wasn't too sure about whether it was age appropriate for me, because I think I was about 4 or 5.
Wow.
But I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I've always been an avid fan.
Oh, fantastic! What about you, Paul?
My first contact was probably when must have been about 4, because we moved house, and the bedroom I was getting to move into had Star Wars wallpaper on it.
Oh,
which,
cool.
without knowing what it was, I was thinking, this wallpaper's pretty cool. Obviously, much later I got to see any of the films.
Yeah.
I'll admit, in many ways, I'm more of a Trekkie than a Star Wars fan. But I appreciate them both for different things.
We'll let you off. Well, I'll let you off.
You're still welcome.
Indeed. We're inclusive.
Yeah, games-wise, there are not many good Star Trek games, but there are loads of excellent Star Wars games. So
Yeah. Trying to think of something.
I was going to ask Paul, does your bedroom still have Star Wars wallpaper? Or
well,
has
I
that
debated it,
fallen by the
but my wife
wayside?
didn't seem so sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm fairly sure one of my friends used to have the Star Wars newspaper wallpaper with kind of like Luke Skywalker kind of stood, and it just wasn't good enough detail, and it was just like a repeated, and it just felt a little bit over the top. But as a kid, though, I
might
really
be
loved
the
it.
same one there.
Yeah. But what else do we have? We had for me, I remember it must have been about I must have been about 6 or 7, and it being on at Christmas time or something like that. And but we weren't allowed to watch it with the rest on the big screen. So we had a black and white TV in the back room because the kids were watching Star Wars and kind of grown-ups were watching the Queen's speech, or I don't know, something along those lines. Something really kind of quintessentially Christmassy, and my mum didn't want to watch Star Wars and weird things going on. So I just kind of saw it on a black and white screen, and I just remember that. And just for the record, I was around at the time of colour TV. It was just that this TV was black and white. So yes, it's that for me was that moment of kind of going, oh, what is this? What is this thing? And the Force and all this kind of malarkey. Tim has just kind of got a mention about computer games. Of course, his first Star Wars game was Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2.
Very good game.
Yeah. Game-wise of Star Wars, I think it was Spectrum +2, and it was the Return of the Jedi, and some bits were good, some bits were a little bit weird, but I remember like the little speeders, and basically it was from above, and you basically kind of jumped on your speeder, and it was just so quick, and you just always just blow up over like boulders or things like that. But it was a good game. But I remember kind of being really excited about it and really wanting to do it. It was just difficult. Just really hard. So do we launch into some of the films? I guess for you, Luke, you kind of came in at the redo at the
Yeah, I was a prequels child. In terms of the cinema, I'd watched all 3 of the original trilogy before I watched any of the prequels.
cool.
But yeah, they were the ones that I saw at the cinema. I was the right age demographic for your Jar Jar Binks and the like.
Misa Jar Jar Binks!
At the time.
I think any musical could be made exciting by if they added Jar Jar Binks as a main character. And so when we go to the theatre, sometimes I wind my wife up. My wife loves kind of theatre stuff, and so do a lot of my friends. But I was kind of occasionally just get to go, oh, Misa, oh. And she's just like, shut up! It's a serious theatrical production. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. Sorry, yes, you were saying. About the films and so the prequels then you kind of got into.
And like I say, it was one of those things we would always go to the cinema in order to watch it, and it's one of those strange ones. The prequels have been kind of having a bit of a resurgence in the last couple of years in popularity. I think they were quite unpopular with Star Wars fans at the time. Admittedly, I was quite small, so I didn't really understand that. But I think people have been finding a new appreciation for them, I would say, and looking past some of the flaws. I don't know if that's just a time thing, but yeah, and I do still enjoy them. But yeah, I definitely feel like the original trilogy, you can't really top it. They're definitely by far my favourite of the films.
Very good. I was going to say, I kind of watched the prequels again, like maybe a similar age that my younger brother got into the prequels, and that was his kind of first introduction. And so we I think I was a bit more kind of, a little bit more gracious with the prequels, and to be honest, but we actually got into the merch in a big way. And I was saying to Luke just before we gathered that I've got a double-ended lightsaber somewhere, but I seem to have misplaced it. And I was just like, they're going, how do I misplace a double-ended lightsaber? Because it doesn't fully retract either. So it is actually quite a large thing. And so I'm just like, I don't know where it is. I think it really is just anyway. I don't know. And so, but I remember kind of us all, my older brother getting us lightsabers, and we had like a lightsaber mask. I think I had a Darth Maul mask somewhere, and I remember kind of frightening my younger brother by jumping into his room when it was bedtime, and he was hitting me quite severely with a lightsaber, and I was just like, oh, actually, this is quite painful. But yeah, I think they do get a hard rap sometimes, but I just think it's another Star Wars film, and I remember when the third one came out going, I'm going to the cinema to see Star Wars, and having that moment of kind of going, this doesn't happen very regularly. Obviously, it's happened more so, but Joey, at the time, I was there kind of go, this is my, kind of the Return of the Jedi moment. This is kind of like a real kind of end to it. Little did we know. Tim has also just jumped on to say about a fun fact. Between 93 and 2017, there was a new Star Wars game released yearly. Blimey, I did not know that. That.
I
The golden age.
believe that.
Yeah, well, I guess it keeps the money coming in, doesn't it? The royalties, which can't be too bad. Can't be too bad for them all. Yeah, and I guess it's it, because actually the original trilogy kind of were well received, and the various kind of plot loops and how it all kind of comes together was fantastic. And if I'm honest, I think the middle of the film was a little bit weaker, because they were not sure whether Harrison Ford was going to come back and otherwise, and I feel as if it kind of, but it still holds itself, but it doesn't have the excitement, I think, of the first or as the third. But that's just my opinion.
I know some people who'd be very upset for you saying that, Mark. But
I don't mind.
I don't fully disagree with you. I'm definitely. I think my favourite is is Return of the Jedi. But I think I like happy endings in a sense. I really like things that have come together. But if you watch it in isolation, I do agree that it doesn't have all the context of the previous two films. And so I can fully understand the people who prefer A New Hope and Empire.
Yeah. And then I think as we come to the kind of the second trilogy, the prequels. What I find is, and I feel as if actually we sometimes fall into this trap across in sci-fi and in TV quite a bit, is where we kind of go to great lengths explaining stuff away and kind of not letting things be a mystery. So we kind of go, well, you wondered about this person. Well, I'm going to give you the full backstory now, and then you kind of get rid of the entire mystery. And I think the people who get the best kind of best come out of it the best are actually when it still isn't explained away, when it still is a bit of a mystery, where you kind of go, but what does that mean, and I think that the mystery carries the character much better usually. I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule, but kind of like even broadly across like Doctor Who, when they're trying to explain kind of why the Doctor's different, or in X-Men with Wolverine, Wolverine, I really enjoyed Wolverine before he was popular, and just to kind of to go through and completely kind of pinpoint his entire kind of life with, oh yeah, Wolverine was an interesting film, and all that kind of, just kind of like, kind of map out his entire life. It was just a bit of a case of, again, well, wouldn't it be nice just to have a bit of a mystery in this, rather than just kind of pegging it all out, and it's a bit of a shame. And I think that's sometimes maybe that is a bit of the issue with the prequels, is that they do kind of clear up a lot of issues, which I guess is good for the geeks to kind of go, yay, I thought that was the case, or oh really, gosh, that is how it came to be. But I think that's maybe where the prequels get a little bit of, they get dissed a bit, because actually people have had many years to think about the backstories. They've had many years to ponder about, oh, how did he become and what happened. So I'm still trying to avoid the the spoilers, by the way. I'm trying to give anything away. And I think that's maybe why it got so much friction to begin with. And now that we've got used to it, then yeah, I think it was. Oh, go on. A little pushback on that. The prequels did try and explain things from the original trilogy to its detriment, but the Clone Wars series came from that and added so much. I don't think I've actually seen the Clone Wars. There's an animated one, is there, of the Clone Wars?
Yeah, so the Clone Wars, you've got a film, an animated film, followed by, I think, 7 seasons of an animated show. It's extensive. But yeah, I think I do agree with what Tim's saying there, that it gives an awful lot of, like you say, a lot of context, but one of the really good things that has come from it is I think a really good exploration of some characters and some really good stories. If you're going into the prequels and things like the shows just looking for your questions to be answered, and you're not interested in getting to know maybe a new character, then actually I think you're asking to be disappointed sometimes. And so yeah, I think that's where I sit with the prequels, of can they give us some context for what's going on in the original trilogy. I can't remember where I saw it, but I read an article about somebody who had put together a new watch order for Star Wars, where you watch episodes 4 and 5, where you get to know Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo, and you end with this huge revelation. I'm glad you popped the spoilers up there, Mark. But yeah, you end up with the huge revelation about Luke Skywalker's parentage, and then we go back. We go, right. Suddenly, we've learned this, groundbreaking piece of information that completely changes the way we see this universe. We're going to go back in time now, and we're going to learn all about who Anakin Skywalker was. And then we're going to go back forward once we've watched the prequels and watch episode 6 and see all of that, all 5 of those previous films culminate with Return of the Jedi, which I've sat and watched them in that order, and I really have quite enjoyed it, in sort of tying them together rather than treating them as 2 separate trilogies.
Yeah, I get that. And then, Tim again is just, he's a font of knowledge. He should have come on this. As well. Kind of interesting. And I think this is it, isn't it? Because actually, we continue to expand, and obviously Disney is kind of really helped perpetuate that. I'm fairly sure putting a lot of money into it and kind of lining up the directors and the right sort of people to be at the helm of all these sort of things, and it is becoming that expanded universe, and I actually really enjoy that. So kind of we're coming on to kind of mention about the Mandalorian, but obviously we've got the final 3 films, or so far the final 3 films of the Skywalker kind of I don't know. I want to say trilogy. Well, what is it called? 9 films on a 9.
They call it the Skywalker Saga.
Oh yes, Skywalker Saga. That's a much better title than me trying to find a name for 9 films on the trot. Yes, I think. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the final 3, the 7, 8, and 9, and I thought maybe the last film took liberties, and I was just like, what? But seriously, I was happy to go there, and I thought actually Ray and kind of I was happy to kind of to go on this cinematic journey and to kind of find some conclusion. I thought it was maybe cutting a little bit of corners and kind of a bit going back on old plots, kind of like, oh, they're creating something that's going to destroy planets, are they? Come on, the Emperor, is just like, what? I was a bit like, come on, where is this? And I think, again, my imagination and the fans' imagination running wild kind of maybe goes beyond and further than what kind of they're going with, where it actually went, and you almost kind of feel as if they're going, all right, they were thinking that, were they? That's a good idea for film number 10 and 11 and 12, because I think you have such a fan base nowadays where you can just kind of rally with stuff and run with it and just see where it goes. And I'm just trying to think of the series that had that recently, but never mind. So should we expand to a little bit further, or do we want to say something about 7, 8 and 9?
Do you want to say something, Paul?
Well, I'm probably one of the controversial ones. I've actually enjoyed the standalone films a little bit more.
Cool.
So, the Solo story, I really enjoyed that. But I've heard other people go, oh no, you can't. So both of those, the two standalone films, I've just really enjoyed. For some of it's just tying up loose plot points, and okay, maybe that's taking some of the mystery out of things. But it makes so much more sense of how you've got the plans of the Death Star than Leia somehow being able to magically get them just because she's a senator. So some of those little bits and the characters that actually you're not really going to know anything else about them, and they have been left as a bit of a mystery.
That's fair. Yeah.
7, 8, and 9, I've sort of gone. It feels like you're just rehashing the originals with a few cameos for good measure.
Yeah. I think my perspective on them, I think they have their place, and similar to the prequels, I think there will come a generation who, for them, that's their Star Wars. That was their exciting thing that they had when they were children. But I think I struggled with it because it felt rushed. It felt like they'd not planned what they wanted to do. It almost felt a bit like Disney had bought Star Wars and gone, right, let's get some films out as quickly as possible because there's not been films for a long time. People will be excited. Let's get this going. Which, fair enough, but wasn't so great for me. It was one of the things that I was about to mention that Tim's just popped up. There's a huge amount of, I don't know how aware you both are of this, but a huge amount of material from what is called the old expanded universe, or now is called Star Wars Legends, which had some really, really good stories in it. And I was really quite disappointed, I think, that they didn't use any of that amazing sort of raw material that I think really could have been something quite brilliant. I'm hopeful with where they're going at the moment with things like the Mandalorian, the Ahsoka series, because it does seem to be touching on a lot of points and drawing on a lot of threads from some really brilliant books. Tim mentioned in the chat the Heir to the Empire film. One of my highest recommendations, if you're interested in reading a Star Wars book, would be reading the Heir to the Empire trilogy by Timothy Zahn, which explores, it's set about 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and explores that time period. So it's a very similar time period to The Mandalorian, but is now in a completely separate canon to modern Star Wars. So it can be a bit confusing. I've tried to explain it to my wife on numerous occasions, but it's very hard to get your head around. Essentially, there's now these two parallel timelines, which are completely separate to each other.
Please tell me we're not getting the Star Wars multiverse.
Who knows? Who knows?
But I get that though, isn't it? Because I guess for even like for example like Marvel, where the comics have gone in one direction, and then the films have just kind of gone, well, we like this bit, we like this bit. Actually, it's going to be too complicated to put that in an hour and 30. So let's just kind of jump over it and kind of get that person to invent it instead, and that kind of stuff. And I kind of understand the cinematic side of that, and therefore I am happy to kind of keep those in like separate kind of areas really. But I do know what you mean. The final three it did feel a little bit kind of like, oh, well, let's see how the first one goes, and then let's do the second, and actually if they'd had a bit more of a, and I think that's where sorry, I'm drastically trying to find the spoiler bit again now. Where the Emperor comes in, you're kind of going, it's a shame that there wasn't a bit more of a thorough build up. And that there's a bit like actually it was a bit like this. It's like, no, come on, you could have woven this far better, and you could have had a bit more of a kind of a, I want to say a crescendo of that kind of like proper like build up, and there we are. Rather than what felt as if it was little kind of very confused, and third film. Oh, yep, here we are. We found the notes now, and we're going to run with this bit, because that's kind of what it felt like. And I think I really enjoyed the kind of characters, and I really enjoyed the little nods to things, and the voices when the saber is touched. There's all these like little kind of details which I kind of go, oh, that's really good, that is. Whereas sometimes it's just a bit, and I like the cameos, but again the way that it steers through, I think, is a bit clumsy, and but again, I think they also do well the fact that when they've won over generations of Star Wars fans anyway, then they kind of go, you know what, it's more Star Wars, isn't it? And they've got to do a lot bad to kind of do bad, because actually,
definitely.
Well, I mean, the fan base is quite
got
forgiving.
to where we are now. When actually we've got some really good stuff being produced in some of the TV shows. Actually, that feel much more Star Warsy to me. But I don't think we'd have got those without the sequel trilogy. We wouldn't be where we are now at all. They've played their part, definitely.
I was say, so I've watched Clone Wars, I've watched Rogue One, and then I started watching I've watched all of Mandalorian, and what's the other chappie with the guy from Rogue One in?
Andor.
Andor, yeah. I thought again they kind of went in. I really quite enjoyed the different. I kind of want to say the different diet, the different kind of variety that they had to offer, and I was really glad that Andor was. At first, I was like, how slow is this? And I think I was like, unsure. But after the second episode, I was like, you know what? It's fine that it's at different speed. I'm happy to go with it. Kind of Mandalorian, I kind of really loved and just jumped into, and I thought it was fab. And it kind of felt as if it was like a space western. And I know kind of Star Wars is kind of like that, but it kind of seems to like ooze it and take it in its stride, and it didn't feel as if it had to do too much. And it has the occasional cameo and little kind of bit, but actually I kind of thought, you know what, this doesn't feel rushed. This feels as if it's a passion project, and that someone's just walking at their own pace with it. At their own, and is it John Favreau or whatever? It's just really good viewing, and it was kind of just really well paced. And then there's a book of Boba Fett. I thought it was really interesting that you have this old man kind of reminiscing, and suddenly when he gets his helmet on, suddenly he's a lot more agile. In his fight scenes, and it's almost as if there's two separate people, like an action person and the main character. But I can't quite put my finger on it. Sorry, I feel it's really harsh, but it felt as if, because it was obviously not him doing all the action scenes. It did just feel as if it was like, wow, these do feel like two separate people. And I understand that there is going to be limitation, and you wouldn't want to see just an old man in a suit, not being able to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought there could have been at least potential to have explored that. Just in the same way, for example, like in Indiana Jones, where he just shoots the guy with the you could explore. Actually, you know what? He's not at the head of his game anymore. He's not. Why maybe that isn't as viewable. I don't know. But talking about views, Tim's put about watching Star Wars Rebels. So is that another animated series as well?
So that's an animated series set between episode 3 and 4. I've watched all the way through Rebels, and I really enjoy it. Similar to Clone Wars, starts off what I'd say is like kind of simpler, more child-friendly, but then grows into itself and becomes much more in depth. You get some really interesting characters who, like Tim said, are going to be really relevant for some of the coming up live-action TV shows and films.
Yeah. I just think, I think all these kind of things, and I think this is it, that because they're becoming such an expanded universe, that I think there is almost something for anybody and everybody, and they've kind of, dare I say that, they're giving kind of the big fans, like the people who have worked their way up, those who have been inspired by Star Wars, now the opportunity to step foot into that and to kind of really explore it. Again, who was it? Who was the director for 8 and 9? I felt as if they're going to go in. Well, you went with a big name, and actually you could have done better. Because I think if you'd gone with a big fan.
Yeah, who was it again? J.J. Abrams, wasn't
that's
it?
The one. Yeah. I just thought, you know what? I think you've gone for comfortable rather than somebody who's willing just to kind of dive into the fun stuff a bit more.
Yeah,
the
which I think you can really tell with things like The Mandalorian, because I think you can just tell that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are living and breathing Star Wars. It's not just a job for them. They're there to feel like they're adding to that universe, but they've got a real respect for the universe and what it means to people as well, which is really lovely to see, and means, in my opinion, we're getting some really great telly and some really great product from it that we can all enjoy.
I think, and I like the way that they kind of deal with just this kind of fleshing out a character, that they've kind of gone from obviously kind of Boba Fett as the bounty hunter, through to kind of actually who is this new character, and putting him into the kind of the Star Wars universe with Grogu, and exploring what kind of that means, to have one of those kind of I don't even know what race it is, but a Yoda, or as my daughter calls him, Baby Greg, and it's I think it's just really well done, because again they're not having to rely on like old characters and they've given that they've been given the space to flex their muscles a bit in the Star Wars universe, and I think that really shows. And I think and I'm going to put a bit of the faith spin on this now as well. I find it really fascinating of how they've explored how they do a faith thing. And that it's a people of a certain order, and it's like it is the way. It's interesting of how they kind of go, well, actually, this is like a faith thing. How does this work? How does this live out? And how does this kind of go with people who wear the helmets and not wear the helmets? How do they get along with one another? How does this work? And actually, how can you unite them with kind of artifacts, with kind of I want to say the theology, but the kind of the law, the legacy, the kind of what's the word I'm after? But that kind of the backstory, and how do you kind of tie it all together? And I just love the fact that in the water there is Again, I'm still not wanting to completely spoil it for people, but feel free to jump in and spoil it. Do you know what I mean? I love that bit, and that for me was just like a moment and excited. Paul, have you seen all of
parallels to baptism, doesn't it? That having to bathe in the living waters of
Yeah.
Mandalore.
Yeah.
I've done plenty of baptisms. There's never a fight scene. Well, I've never had a fight scene at a baptism yet. It's the dogma of Mandalore. But I just find it fascinating just how kind
a
of
huge Leviathan-like creature at the bottom of the font.
Oh well, don't go about things in fonts. I think Anglican Twitter this week has all been awash about ducks, and anyway, well, let's not go there. We'll park that one way over there. I'm far more happy to talk about about the other thing in the waters of Mandalore. I think it's really good, and again, I'm really glad that they're happy to leave things in some ways kind of a closed door. In others, you kind of left questioning, and I think that's maybe where I think it's happy to kind of leave things a little bit unravelled for the fans, and I think that's maybe a fan knowing that rather than having to explain everything away. Just interesting of how it ends.
No, definitely. I think I've heard a lot of negativity from people online about kind of how season 3 of The Mandalorian went. I think some people just aren't very happy with it, and I think there are some valid frustrations, which I think are fair. I think there were some people who were a little bit disappointed with Moff Gideon's kind of plan not really coming to anything. It was kind of solved by Mando pushing a couple of buttons, and there we go. That's that entire 3-season arc solved. We're done now. We don't need to worry about
there
that.
goes all this tension.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't really get to see them do anything.
But do we mention the moustache?
True.
So, Paul, have you seen the last episode, by the way?
I have,
you? Yeah. So, do we go there? I mean, this is just absolute spoilers now, because there is the fan theory, isn't there, that the character that they kind of went against, he didn't have a moustache, and therefore, actually, is he a clone?
Yeah.
Possibly.
And therefore, we just don't know whether that is going to be a thing or not.
Bit of a wait and see. Question, isn't it? But yeah, I personally, I really don't enjoy what I'd call like overcooking characters and draining them of every circumstance they can be in, just so you can make one more season of a show. And actually, I quite like that they've wrapped up the story with Mando and Grogu, and I think just kind of it's almost a let them rest for a bit, let them be. Let's not completely run these characters out, because then I think in a year or two, when we get to see them again in another show, maybe they appear, I'll be really excited about that. Whereas if we've had 10 seasons of The Mandalorian, and it's what adventure are they going on today, I think I would just get a bit tired of it. So I'm quite happy that they've kind of gone, yep, that's a really nice little ending. I think they've given us an awful lot of context about who the Mandalorians are, put them in a really interesting spot in the galaxy. So yeah, really really keen to see what happens next.
Oh, it's for a few of the series and Great Links to sequels. I thought it had really good kind of sprinkling of kind of. And again, it's just like the right amount of a nod, kind of a doffing of the cap to kind of those who've gone before. Yeah, having hooked his father as played by his brother to say that it was like a lineage thing, I thought was really good. I thought that was very cleverly done. And again, they didn't have to do that, but it was just nice that they did do that. I kind of enjoy the fact that we've got more kind of Star Wars stuff coming up, and I think this is it, that if they can kind of leave kind of Mandalorian just a little bit and let it kind of just tick over nicely, and because it does feel as if it's come to a nice conclusion, and therefore don't force it, leave the lid on it for a little bit. enjoy a bit more of the universe, and then if we come back around to it after kind of Asaka, is it Ahsoka?
Ahsoka.
And those sort of things, allow that just age, and then kind of come back to it a bit. To see Grogu as like a bit more of a, I was about to say like a chatty teenager, but you know what I mean. It'd be really interesting to just as a passing, just go past, that's it. I think that would be really good. It would be really cool.
Do you think he'll speak in the same strange syntax as Yoda? Is that a learned thing, or is that a species-based? Is it nature or nurture? That kind of question.
Well, I have, not that I've been actively looking for it, but they have been. AKA Snips, Asaka, AKA Snips. I don't know what that means. Does anybody else know what that means?
It was her nickname in the early series of the Clone Wars.
Thank you. And I don't know what that means either.
So Yaddle is the female version of Yoda, who shows up very briefly in episode 1, and then she's just been in one of the new animated shows, the Tales of the Jedi show, and she talks normally. So Yoda might just be really awkward. He just, is a bit odd.
Well, I didn't know, again, because I haven't really looked for it, but I was reading up somewhere that they'd talked about, well, actually, does it reflect that for some of them, their languages felt like through the Force, and so therefore it's actually their own interpretation, and therefore, it depends on actually how each of them have kind of done it, and actually, is the Mandalorian, is Grogu going to actually, because he's kind of being brought up with the Mandalorian, going to be a bit more kind of acclimatized to kind of more human language rather than kind of in isolation on a swamp planet. Pardon?
Might be quite taciturn though. He's not going to say a lot.
Yeah. It is the way. The way it is. Maybe not. Sorry. I was trying not to do any of those. Anyway, Jar Jar Binks and Yoda tick. I think I'm really looking forward to how it kind of continues to go the Star Wars universe, really. Do we want to comment a bit more about that? Do we want to talk a bit more about general things, Star Wars? And Luke, did you have something Star Warsy to bring?
When I saw you had all of your paraphernalia around you, I had to grab some of mine together. We had the great fortune last year to go to America. Cool. And in America now, obviously, they've got at Disney a place called Galaxy's Edge, which is essentially their big Star Wars park, which is brilliant. I had an amazing time there. For anyone who doesn't know, it's like a full immersion experience, essentially. Wow. So when you enter Galaxy's Edge, you are on the world of Batuu. And all of the cast members and the shopkeepers and things, they will talk to you as though you are in the universe of Star Wars. You will, you buy things using Republic credits. We're very thankful. It's a 1-to-1 exchange rate with the dollar.
Good. That's
good. It's very convenient for figuring things out. But we had a brilliant time doing that. We got to fly the Millennium Falcon. We got to have a drink in the cantina, go to the shops, and the most exciting thing was going and building our own lightsabers, which we had a brilliant time doing. You sort of get to customize it to be however you want it, and it's all like proper metal and things, which is brilliant. And so it's my own lightsaber. Which
does it cut like a lightsaber as well?
Sadly not, but I think good. For responsibility. But
that is very cool.
It was an incredible experience. And so got a lightsaber. Went to the cantina and bought this, which is a sort of beer glass, which is all kind of carved. the
Is that
idea
Ewoks? Is that?
Yeah, the idea is it was carved by the Ewoks after the Battle of Endor.
Yeah.
To sort of celebrate, they would carve these mugs. So yeah, had an amazing time doing it. And yeah, if you get the opportunity, I heartily recommend it for any Star Wars fan. And even if you're not a Star Wars fan, my mum, who is very tangentially aware of Star Wars as the thing that my dad and me and my sister really enjoy, and she's seen the films but isn't that bothered. But it was her favorite bit of going to
Wow.
Disney. She really enjoyed it. So
very cool.
heartily recommend it.
Fantastic. Paul, so you did disappear. Have you got anything Star Warsy or not? Oh, you're. I can't hear you at all. Though you've muted.
Hang on. Yep, that
There you
might
go.
be-
That's better.
I don't particularly have anything along those lines at the moment. In fact, never really have.
Oh,
But yeah, I mean, most of my stuff has always been collecting huge numbers of games in a ridiculously huge Steam library, which is embarrassingly large, and I would not want to show anyone too closely in case they see the amount of time I've spent in it.
yeah. Oh, cool.
Do you have a favorite Star Wars game, Paul?
Ooh. I enjoyed all of the Force Unleashed games. They were great fun to play. There is something hugely satisfying about pulling stormtroopers off gantries and all sorts of fun things like that.
Oh, I think I had that on the Wii, and I thought it was really good to have you kind of the Joy-Cons, is that the Switch one? The nunchucks or whatever they are, and to be able to kind of go, I thought it was really cool to physically do it, as it were.
I think if I was to really pick a favourite, it would actually probably be TIE Fighter. Because there's something great fun about being able to play as the Empire. And be a pilot who, as far as he's concerned, they're the good guys keeping peace in the galaxy. And it's only as you gradually piece the story together and go through and eventually get offered secret missions for the Emperor that you're suddenly going, oh, it's almost that common sketch. Are we the bad guys?
Yeah.
It's just great fun.
Is that one from a few years back?
Just quite enjoyable to do that without needing to have the Force in some ways.
Yeah. Was the TIE Fighter one, is that from a few years back?
No, that's from early 90s.
Okay, because I played a recent Star Wars one, but on PlayStation 3, 4? But yeah, PlayStation 4.
Out Star Wars Squadrons, which was almost a bit of a harkening back to that era, I think. Did you have a chance to play that, Paul?
I have it. I haven't actually loaded it yet.
I actually really enjoyed it, but I just didn't get very far. But I think I ended my PlayStation Store subscription or something before I could get too far with it. But I enjoyed it, especially as a bit of a kind of an opportunity to fly a starfighter, a TIE fighter and things like that. It was very cool.
So I will avoid showing my games played and hours spent in. But this would be my Star Wars gaming collection.
Oh, there's that one. Yeah.
And I've probably spent more time in some of the older games than the more recent ones. In fact, you can tell I've not even played Fallen Order yet.
Yeah. Well, bless you. Well, that's really cool. I'm really glad that you've got like a Lego Star Wars on there, because actually we played that for many years, the kind of original saga and all that kind of original trilogy and the saga and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was very good and it's just light-hearted, and to be able to kind of go around and bash kind of droids into bits and getting your coins up and and finding those things, that was fun, and I think they've done it really well. And I have got some kind of Lego Star Wars stuff. I do have, I better actually just mention this as well. I'll throw up my screen about my my little. I want to call them AT-ATs, but they're not, are they? This is the other version.
ATST.
ATSTs, and they've got like a little. It takes me ages to self-level this guy really, because he's a bit off balance. So I'm not going to flick it, but basically you flick that the other way and you push that in and out, and it will walk.
Oh,
and it'll
wow.
kind of spring back and walk, but it's a bit temperamental. This, however, is the original Millennium. Well, not the original. It is a original Millennium Falcon, and I've got to say, I've always felt a little bit bad. My we had two, and basically it was at a time where I picked up a Millennium Falcon from like a tabletop sale at my local school, because my old brother had one, and he used to play, and we used to play with them battle beasts, which you might not know exist. I'm just going to reach for them. So 1 second. Can I reach for them? Am I going to get garroted? Nope. This is really. That's where we're going to go with this. These are lots of little tiny figures. They're actually associated with Transformers, but can you see the little dots in their feet? They actually fit into the little places on the Millennium Falcon. And so, as a kid, I didn't care too much about Star Wars. I wanted a ship for my battle beasts. So my older brother had one Millennium Falcon, I had another one, and so we'd land on planets and fight each other. And so, but eventually, I watched the films and I was like, oh,
I get it now.
that's what that's all about. That's really cool. And so I kept on to my Millennium Falcon, and I kept on to the ASAT. Is that right? No, I'm getting it wrong. These two things, and then I came back from university once, and my older brother kind of went, "Oh yeah, I sold my spare Millennium Falcon," and I was like, "Sorry, what?" You said you got a spare Millennium Falcon. I don't recall a spare Millennium Falcon. I recall me having a Millennium Falcon and you having a Millennium Falcon. So what you're telling me is, have you sold my Millennium Falcon? And he kind of had to admit that he had actually sold my Millennium Falcon. And so, bless him though, he gave me his Millennium Falcon. And so I've always felt kind of a little bit of a twinge, but this is basically would have been my older brother's one, because he'd collected the additional bits, the satellite and the guns, because mine no longer had that, you see. And so I feel a little bit, I always felt a little bit kind of, oh gosh, I'm really about it, but it's my Millennium Falcon.
That's a lovely example of sibling love, though, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. It does actually, it still works with the batteries, but I haven't got any batteries in it because I didn't want it to corrode or otherwise, so it does still technically add little sound effects to it as well, which I'm very happy about. But then I can't remember if, it's got like the little, in fact, let's do that. It's got like the little chess table.
Oh, yes.
Thingy chest. It's very dusty in there though, and it seems to have lost. I seem to have lost a compartment to it somewhere. But then, in fact, I've just noticed something else as well. My older brother passed that on to me as well. This is just a two, a very
very nice.
Oh, in fact, was that it may even be my son's one. But it's much more modern because, that's where we are. Anything else to add to Star Wars or otherwise?
I had a proper flash from the past when Paul put up his list of games, because I spent so many hours playing the Knights of the Old Republic games.
Oh, yeah.
Some real classics that I think still hold up today. I know a friend of mine who watched me play it on my old laptop for many, many hours, but he got it on his iPad. And so he would send me messages saying, "Oh, I'm doing this mission. It's great. I remember when we did this." And so, it's so good.
Yeah, I've found those games to be some of the most replayable. At least once I managed to get them updated and working properly on more modern hardware.
Oh, yeah.
But, the fact that you can really... It's probably not just me. I deliberately have to go back and decide that I'm going to pick the sort of dark side. It's really hard to do it unless you do it deliberately.
Oh yeah, I find I do. Yeah, I have a propensity
when you go that way.
Be a goodie.
Oh, you've sometimes got to, join the dark side a bit. Lean into the dark side.
Definitely.
Through some
And I think that's some of the fun of things like the Force Unleashed games, because you just get to revel in not being the nicest person.
I think I did it both ways, actually. I think I explored both ways, but yeah, it's very good.
The Knights of the Old Republic games as well. This is definitely a spoiler one, so I'm not going to say what the spoiler is, but the twist halfway through the first game, just amazing.
Definitely.
It beats anything, as far as I'm concerned, it beats anything they've done in the movie.
Oh, I don't know if I could go that far, but I do agree with you that I remember I can't remember how old I was at the time. I think I was about 12 or something, and I was shocked, absolutely, blown away. And yeah, but such good games, and I think they're the sort of thing you could make a brilliant set of films out of that sort of story as well.
I did notice almost a nod to that in The Mandalorian, though, with the idea of a particular character whose memory was not what it should be.
To be honest, I've got to put my hand up. I don't know actually. I haven't played the game. I don't know what the spoiler is. And even having seen The Mandalorian, I don't actually know what that point is. It will be. Hopefully, it will make sense to people who have played the game and have got to that point. But I realise that we've just kind of gone over the hour. But I just want to say thank you to you both for sharing a bit about your passions about Star Wars. Is there anything else to say about Star Wars, or is there anything to say to maybe a person who's not seen Star Wars for the first time? Is there anything along those lines? Oh, go on. Which film would you encourage them to see, or what would you encourage them to start off with if they're completely new to Star Wars?
I think if you're completely new, you can't go wrong going back to Episode 4 and acknowledging that it's a film from the late 70s and it has its flaws in that sense, but it's a brilliant place to start, I think. It introduces so well to the mysticism of the world.
Do you go for the original or the added CGI effects?
Oh, whatever you can get. Whatever's on Disney Plus now. I don't even know how I would go about watching a original copy of Star Wars now if I had it on VHS or something.
I think I actually came across one of the early Laserdisc versions of it as well.
Wow. Oh. Yeah, I've got to say, I vaguely remember when Phantom Menace came out, when they started to redo the original trilogy and they did the original CGI. I thought that was quite bad.
Yeah.
It was quite poorly done. But actually, I think they got to a good standard a few years later where they'd kind of gone back and gone, oh yeah, that was rubbish. Let's just polish that up a bit more and otherwise. And it's always that bit about walking over. Is it Jabba the Hutt's tail or something?
Oh yes.
Because originally he was a man, and so then they CGI'd him as a creature, as he was in the next film, sort of thing. And I think that's always a bit that I look out for to kind of go, oh, how cringy is this going to be?
Bops around like a cardboard cutout, doesn't he? He just is.
Well, I think it's like he pretends to step on his tail because the character walks behind, and so you've got to somehow CGI that. Of how do you walk around something that's actually far bigger than what it was filmed to be. And that tells him it's very interesting. But anyway, bless you. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Paul, for joining me. I'm going to drop you off the screens and stay in the green room. I'll chat to you just before we go. Not that we have a green room of sorts, but it's just in the software behind the scenes. Thank you, folks. Thank you for joining tonight. Thank you for watching on Catch Up. I think it's been a pleasure to talk about Star Wars and keep connected with us through kind of following us, liking us, subscribing, all that kind of stuff on there like that. And you can also be part of community. I don't think I've actually dropped it in this description, but it's rattling around on the website or otherwise. So feel free to be part of the conversation outside of this. I do occasionally look back over the comments. I kind of saw Tim from last week talking about Tolkien and things like that. So maybe that's a subject to talk about at some point. But it has been a pleasure this evening. And I guess just as we come to an end, I guess I just want to say thank you for watching. And Blessed be the geek.